In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to simplify variable expressions. In the last lesson, we talked about how to write them. We talked about how to evaluate them. This time, we're going to talk about how to simplify them. As we get into that, it's important that we review some vocabulary words that you learned last year. Terms is the first one. And terms are all the individual parts of an expression. So, for example, we have 3x as a term, 2 is a term, and 7y. Each of those are parts of that expression. A constant is a number that never changes. So in this expression, 2 is a constant. That number is not going to change. The x will change because we'll put something in its place. The y could change. We will put something in its place. So they're not constants. A number by itself with no variables is a constant. Like terms are what have identical variables. So 4x and 6x are like terms because they both have an x. And then a coefficient is the last vocabulary word I want to review. A coefficient is a number in front of a variable. So 4 in 4x is the coefficient. 6 in 6x is the coefficient. They're not constants because they're not numbers by themselves. They're coefficients. They're numbers in front of variables. Now, how do I simplify an expression? Okay, the first thing we always do is we check for multiplication. Okay, if there is multiplication, that has to come before anything else. So for example, in this expression it says 3 times 2a. Well, we need to multiply first. 3 times 2a means 2a, 2a, and 2a. There's 2, 4, 6 a's. After we check for multiplication and we take care of that, then we combine our constants, those numbers that don't have variables. And then once we've done that, we combine our like terms. So we put together all the terms that have x's and all the terms that have y's and the terms that have a's and so forth. When we talk about combining like terms, we can only add or subtract like terms. Okay, we can only combine two terms together if we're adding them or subtracting them if they have the same variable. So for example, 8a and 5a can be combined because they both have an a. But 8a and 5b could not be combined because this one has an a and this one has a b. Those are not like terms. They're different variables. So let's practice that. Let's look at number 1. Okay, do you see any multiplication? Negative 8 plus 3 times 4x. So we're going to start there. Okay, 3 times 4x is 12x. So my new expression is negative 8 plus 12x plus 12 minus 7x. Okay, so we've done our multiplication. Now we combine our constants. Remember, a constant is a number without a variable. So that's negative 8 and positive 12. Okay, how do I know that's negative 8? Because the sign in front of the 8 is negative. How do I know that's positive 12? Because the sign in front of the 12 is a plus, meaning it's positive. So I combine negative 8 plus 12, and I get 4. Okay, so I have 4. Now, step 3 says combine your like terms. Okay, well, my like terms are 12x and negative 7x. Okay, how do I know that 12 is positive? Because the sign in front of it is a plus. So we have positive 12x minus 7x. How do I know to put the minus with the 7x? It's because it's the sign right in front of it. 12x minus 7x is 5x, and that's positive 5x, right? So I'm going to put a plus sign there to communicate it's positive. So I've simplified this expression to 4 plus 5x. I cannot simplify any further because these are not like terms, so that is my final answer. Number 2, let's check for multiplication. We have 3y minus negative 12x minus 5x plus 9. So there's no multiplication to be solved there, so let's move on and combine our constants. I have a 9, and then I have no other variables that are by themselves, so 9 will be part of our final answer. Step 3 says combine your like terms. So let's look. I have a term with an x here and a term with an x here. Now, let's look in front of the 12x. There's a negative sign, and there's also a minus sign. Anytime we have two negatives, they cancel each other out. So this becomes plus 12x. So I'm combining positive 12x with negative 5x, or minus 5x. When we do 12x minus 5x, that's 7x, and that's positive, so I'll use a plus sign, plus 7x. And then I have this 3y term that's positive. I can't combine that with everything else, so I just leave that as part of my answer and say plus 3y. This will be my final answer, 9 plus 7x plus 3y, because there are no more like terms that can be combined. Also, let me just mention, when you're trying to come up with what sign to put, whether it's a plus or minus sign, if the number is positive, you'll always put a plus sign in front of it. If it's negative, you'll use a minus sign. Now, as we simplify expressions, it's important to review the distributive property. This is a property you learned last year, and it's used to help eliminate parentheses in an expression. So, for example, we have 4 times x plus 5. We're multiplying the 4 on the outside times the whole inside, which is x plus 5. When we distribute, what we do is we multiply. So we go 4 times x and make that 4x. And then we distribute to the 5. We make it 4 times 5, which is 20. And then we take the same sign that was in the middle of the original terms and we put it between our two new terms. So when we distribute, remember we take the number on the outside of the parentheses and we multiply that to each number inside the parentheses. So let's try that. Okay, let's try that in number 1. We start by checking for multiplication, and we have that here because we need to use the distributive property. So let's take the number in front and multiply that by each term in the parentheses. Negative 5 times y is negative 5y. Negative 5 times negative 3, remember that's negative, that minus sign means that 3 is negative. Negative 5 times negative 3 is positive 15. So I'm going to put a plus sign there to communicate that it's positive 15 now. Okay, now I'm at the end of the parentheses, so I don't need to distribute. Okay, I don't distribute to that 12y. I just bring that 12y down as part of my new problem. Okay, now I combine the constants, but there's only one constant in this problem, so I know in my answer I'm going to have 15. Now let's move to step 3. Let's combine the like terms. Let's combine the negative 5 and the positive 12. When I put negative 5 with positive 12, I get positive 7y. So I'll use a plus sign since that's positive. 15 plus 7y is my simplified answer. Because those are not like terms, I cannot combine any further. Now look at number 2. Check for multiplication and look carefully. It says negative 12n plus negative 4 minus 6n plus 3. There's no multiplication here. Even though you see parentheses, there's not a number directly outside the parentheses, so there's no multiplication here. So let's move to step 2. Let's combine the constants. We have a negative 4 and a positive 3. When we combine negative 4 and positive 3, that's negative 1. Now combine your like terms. You have a negative 12n and a negative 6n. When we put two negatives together, we add them and get negative 18n, and we keep the sign. So in my answer, I'm going to write minus 18n. That minus means that 18n is negative. So negative 1 minus 18n is my final answer. Number 3, check for multiplication. I do have a number right outside the parentheses, so I'm going to distribute. 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 7 is 42. And there's a minus sign between the terms in the parentheses, so I put a minus sign between my two terms. And then I bring down my plus x. Now, step 2, combine the constants. There's only one constant in this problem. It's negative 42. Step 3 is combine the like terms. So 6x and, oh, how many x's is this right here? It doesn't have a number in front of it. It doesn't have a coefficient. In that case, I add in the coefficient of 1. This is 6x and 1x. I combine those together to get positive 7x. So my simplified expression is negative 42 plus 7x. Remember, if you need help remembering this concept of simplifying expressions, please plan to attend a teacher session.